I didn't know her name. But I'll never forget the moment I saw the scars on her arm. Because 5 minutes later, she said something that made me question everything I thought I understood about pain, survival, and what it really means to be seen. And the strangest part? That night almost never happened. Because I almost didn't go. My name is Ethan Cole. And if you saw me on a normal day, you probably wouldn't think my life was anything special. Just another guy trying to make it through the week. But what you wouldn't see is everything holding that life together. I'm a single dad. My daughter Lily is 6 years old, and she's the only reason I get out of bed some mornings. Not because I don't want to live, but because some days, it still feels like I'm just surviving. 3 years ago, I lost my wife. No warning. No time to prepare. One moment she was there, laughing in the kitchen, and the next moment, silence. The kind of silence that doesn't just fill a room. It follows you everywhere. After that, everything changed. I had to become everything at once. Father. Mother. Provider. Protector. There's no manual for that. No pause button. You just keep going, because someone is depending on you. Every morning, I wake up early, make Lily breakfast, pack her lunch, and pretend like everything is okay. And she believes me. Because kids, they trust you like that. They don't see the cracks. They don't hear the weight in your voice when the house gets quiet at night. They just see you. And somehow, that keeps you going. Work is where I disappear. Construction site management. Long hours. Loud machines. It's not glamorous, but it pays the bills. Barely. And when the day ends, I don't go home to rest. I go home to my second job. Dinner. Homework. Laundry. And then bedtime stories, even when I'm too tired to keep my eyes open. Because those moments matter. They're all I have left of the life I used to know. So yeah, I didn't have time for anything else. No parties. No social events. No pretending to belong somewhere I didn't. Which is why, when the invitation showed up, I almost threw it away without even opening it. It came in a black envelope. Heavy. Expensive. The kind of thing that doesn't belong on a kitchen table covered in unpaid bills. I stared at it for a while. Then finally opened it. Inside was a formal invitation. A company gala. Hosted by the CEO himself. And at the bottom, one word that made my chest tighten. Mandatory. I actually laughed when I saw it. Not because it was funny, but because life has a way of forcing you into situations you don't want to be in. I leaned back in my chair and rubbed my face. A gala. In a room full of people who probably spend more on their shoes than I do on rent. That wasn't my world. And it never would be. But I needed this job. So I folded the invitation, set it aside, and tried not to think about it. But over the next few days, it kept coming back. Every time I opened my closet and saw the one suit I owned. Every time I imagined standing in a room full of strangers, trying to act like I belonged. I didn't belong. And I knew it. But when the night came, I still showed up. Because sometimes, you don't get to choose the moment. The moment chooses you. The venue was exactly what I expected. And somehow, worse. Crystal chandeliers. Polished floors. People laughing like they didn't have a single problem in the world. Everything looked perfect. Too perfect. I stood near the entrance for a second, adjusting my tie, already feeling out of place. I didn't recognize anyone. And no one recognized me. Which honestly, I preferred. So I did what I always do in situations like that. I stayed on the edge. Watched. Listened. Waited for the night to end. But then, I saw her. She wasn't in the center of the room. She wasn't laughing or talking or trying to impress anyone. She was standing near the wall. Alone. And at first, it didn't seem unusual. People step away from crowds all the time. But something about her felt different. She wasn't just alone. She was being avoided. Like there was an invisible line around her that no one wanted to cross. That's when I noticed the details. The long sleeves. The way she kept her arm slightly turned away from the light. And then, the scars. Faint, but visible. Enough to make people look. And then look away. I watched as a group nearby glanced at her, whispered something, and quickly shifted their attention elsewhere. Not openly cruel. But not kind either. Just enough to make it clear. She didn't belong there. And in that moment, I understood something without her saying a single word. I knew that feeling. That quiet kind of loneliness that doesn't make noise, but sits with you anyway. I should have looked away. Gone back to my corner. Finished the night like I planned. But I didn't. Because something about her felt familiar. Like I was looking at a different version of myself. And before I tell you what happened next, if you're enjoying this story so far, take a second to like this video, drop a comment, and subscribe to the channel for daily stories like this. Because trust me, what happened next changed everything. I took a deep breath, straightened my shoulders, and walked toward her. Each step felt heavier than it should have. Not because I was scared, but because I knew this moment mattered. When I finally reached her, she looked up. Surprised. Like she wasn't expecting anyone to approach. For a second, we just stood there. Then I said the simplest thing I could think of. Would you like to dance? Her eyes widened slightly. There was confusion there. And something else. Disbelief. No one's ever asked me that before, she said quietly. That hit harder than I expected. I gave a small smile. Then I guess it's about time someone did. She hesitated. Just for a moment. Like she wasn't sure if this was real. Then slowly, she placed her hand in mine. And in that exact moment, neither of us knew it yet. But our lives were about to change in ways we never saw coming. The moment her hand touched mine, I felt it. Not just the hesitation, but the weight behind it. Like she wasn't just deciding whether to dance. She was deciding whether to trust. Her fingers were cold, slightly tense. Like she expected me to pull away at any second. I didn't. Instead, I gently guided her toward the dance floor. And for a brief moment, I became very aware of the room again. The music. The lights. The people. Because now, they were watching. Not openly. Not obviously. But enough. Enough to feel it. Enough to know that this wasn't normal to them. A man like me. Dancing with someone like her. But I didn't stop. And neither did she. We stepped into the light together. The music was slow. Soft. The kind of song people usually use as an excuse to get closer to someone they already know. But we were strangers. And yet, there was something strangely familiar about the silence between us. At first, she didn't say anything. Her posture was careful. Measured. Like she had practiced how to exist without drawing attention. You don't have to be nervous, I said quietly. She let out a small breath. I'm not nervous, she replied. Then, after a pause, I'm just not used to this. I nodded. Yeah, me neither. That made her look at me. Really look at me. Like she was trying to figure out if I was being honest. You don't look uncomfortable, she said. I let out a soft laugh. That's because I've had a lot of practice pretending. For a second. Her lips curved. Just slightly. Not a full smile. But enough to notice. And for some reason, that felt like a win. We moved slowly with the music. Careful steps. Unspoken rhythm. And for a while, neither of us said anything. But it wasn't awkward. It was quiet in a way that felt safe. Until she broke it. I know what they're thinking, she said softly. I frowned. Who? She tilted her head slightly, gesturing toward the room. Everyone. I followed her gaze. People talking. Laughing. Drinking. But every now and then. A glance. A whisper. A second too long. They're wondering why you'd ask me to dance, she continued. I looked back at her. Why wouldn't I? That caught her off guard. You could see it. In the way her expression shifted. In the way her guard cracked just a little. She hesitated. Then slowly, she moved her arm. Just enough. The fabric of her sleeve shifted. And the scars became visible. Clearer now. Not just faint marks. But something deeper. Something real. This is why, she said quietly. There it was. Not just the scars. But the meaning behind them. The reason people stayed away. The reason no one asked. The reason she stood alone. I looked at her arm for a moment. Then back at her. And I made sure my expression didn't change. No shock. No pity. Just honesty. I see strength, I said. She blinked. Like she didn't understand what I meant. Most people don't, she replied. Most people don't look properly, I said. The words came out simple. But they landed heavy. You could see it in her eyes. That moment when something unexpected reaches a place that's been closed off for a long time. Do you always say things like that? She asked. I shook my head slightly. No, I said. Only when they're true. This time. She smiled. Not small. Not hesitant. A real smile. And it changed everything. Because suddenly, she didn't look like the girl everyone avoided. She looked like someone who had just remembered what it felt like to be seen. The music continued. But something between us shifted. The distance. The tension. It started to fade. You're different, she said after a while. I raised an eyebrow. Different how? She studied me for a second. Most people try not to notice me, she said. You walked straight toward me. I shrugged slightly. You looked like you didn't want to be here. Her eyes softened. That obvious? Only if you felt it before, I said. She didn't respond right away. But she didn't have to. Because in that silence, there was understanding. Real understanding. The kind that doesn't need explanation. We kept dancing. And for the first time that night, I stopped thinking about where I was. Who was watching? Whether I belonged. Because in that moment, none of it mattered. It was just us. Two people. Who didn't quite fit anywhere else. Finding something that made sense. You're not like them, she said quietly. I followed her gaze again. The polished crowd. Perfect smiles. Carefully controlled conversations. No, I said. I'm not. She looked back at me. And this time, there was curiosity in her eyes. Then why are you here? That question hit differently. Not because it was hard to answer. But because it reminded me of something I'd been trying not to think about. I didn't have a choice, I said. She tilted her head slightly. Mandatory? I nodded. She let out a small breath. Figures. There was a hint of something in her voice. Not bitterness. But familiarity. Like she understood more than she was saying. What about you? I asked. Why are you here? For a moment. Her expression changed. Not completely. But enough. Enough to tell me there was more to that answer than I was about to get. I don't really have a choice either, she said. And just like that, I knew. There was a story there. A deeper one. Something she wasn't ready to share yet. And I didn't push. Because I understood that too. Some things take time. The song began to slow. The music softening toward an end. And for a second, I wondered if this was it. If this moment would fade the same way everything else does. But then she spoke again. Thank you, she said. I looked at her. For what? For asking, she said. Simple. Honest. But it carried more meaning than anything else she'd said that night. I smiled. You're welcome. The music ended. But neither of us moved right away. Like we were both aware that stepping away might mean losing whatever this was. And neither of us wanted that. Not yet. Because sometimes, it only takes one moment, one choice, one simple question, to remind someone that they're not invisible. And maybe, that's all either of us needed that night. The music faded. But neither of us moved. For a moment, it felt like the entire room disappeared. Like it was just us. Standing there, holding on to something we didn't fully understand yet. Then she slowly pulled her hand back. Not abruptly. Not awkwardly. Just, carefully. Like she wasn't used to holding on to something for too long. I should probably get some air, she said quietly. I nodded. Yeah, me too. We didn't say anything else. We just walked. Side by side. Through the crowd. Past the noise. Past the laughter that didn't quite feel real anymore. Until we reached the balcony. The moment we stepped outside, everything changed. The air was cooler. Quieter. Honest. The city stretched out in front of us, lights glowing in the distance, cars moving like slow streams of red and white. For a second, neither of us spoke. And somehow, that silence felt more comfortable than any conversation inside. She walked toward the railing and rested her hands against it. I stayed a step behind at first, giving her space. Not because I wanted distance, but because I knew what it felt like to need it. You didn't ask, she said after a while. Her voice was softer out here. Less guarded. I stepped closer. Ask what? She didn't turn around right away. How I got the scars. I leaned against the railing beside her. The metal was cold under my hands. I figured you'd tell me if you wanted to, I said. That made her glance at me. Just briefly. Like she was measuring something. Then she looked back at the city. Most people, when they hear something like that, they rush. They ask questions. They try to fill the silence. But I didn't. I waited. And after a few seconds, she spoke. It was a fire, she said. Simple. Direct. But heavy. The kind of word that carries more than just its meaning. I didn't interrupt. Didn't react. Just listened. I was younger, she continued. Still trying to figure out who I was, what I wanted. Her fingers tightened slightly around the railing. There was an accident. Something small at first, at least that's what everyone thought. Her voice slowed. Not because she didn't want to speak, but because she was choosing every word carefully. By the time anyone realized how bad it was, she paused. And for the first time, I saw it. Not just the scars on her skin, but the memory behind them. I barely made it out, she said quietly. The city lights reflected in her eyes. But they didn't hide the truth. They made it clearer. I survived, she added. And there was something about the way she said that. Like survival wasn't a victory. It was just something that happened. At first, people said I was lucky, she continued. They said I should be grateful. She let out a small, humorless breath. But they didn't see what came after. I stayed quiet. Because I already knew. This part mattered. Everything changed, she said. The way people looked at me. The way they spoke to me. The way they avoided me. Her voice didn't break. But it didn't need to. The weight was already there. I stopped being a person, she said. I became something people felt uncomfortable around. She finally turned toward me. And this time, she didn't hide. They don't see me, she said. They see this. She gently pulled her sleeve back again. The scars were clearer now. Under the soft light of the balcony. Real. Unfiltered. But this time, I wasn't looking at the scars. I was looking at her. I see someone who made it out, I said. She held my gaze. Like she was waiting for something else. Something more. I see someone who's still here, I added. And that's not nothing. For a second. She didn't respond. Then she looked away again. But this time, her posture changed. Just slightly. Like something inside her had shifted. My father thinks he's protecting me, she said after a moment. That's why I'm here tonight. I frowned slightly. What do you mean? She rested her arms on the railing again. He's the one hosting this event, she said. That caught me off guard. I straightened slightly. The CEO? She nodded. And I'm the daughter he doesn't know what to do with. There it was. Another layer. Another piece of the story. He keeps me close, she continued. Not because he wants me to live, but because he's afraid of what happens if I try. There was no anger in her voice. Just truth. I used to go out, she said. Before all of this. I had plans. Friends. A life. She shook her head slightly. Now. I just exist in the background of his world. I looked at her. Really looked at her. And for the first time, I didn't just see someone who had been hurt. I saw someone who had been held back. You're still here, I said. She let out a small breath. Yeah, she said. But I don't know if that's enough. That question hung in the air. Not spoken directly. But there. And I understood it. More than she probably realized. My wife passed away 3 years ago, I said. She turned toward me again. Surprised. I don't usually talk about it. Not like this. Not with someone I just met. But something about this moment made it feel right. It was sudden, I continued. One of those things that doesn't make sense, no matter how many times you think about it. I looked out at the city. Not because I couldn't look at her, but because some memories are easier to say out loud when you're not looking at someone. One day she was there, I said. The next day, she wasn't. I let that sit for a second. Then continued. And after that, everything fell on me. My daughter. My job. My life. I gave a small, tired smile. You don't really get time to fall apart when someone's depending on you. She listened. The same way I had listened to her. Without interrupting. Without trying to fix anything. Does it ever get easier? She asked softly. That question. I've heard it before. I've asked it myself. I thought about it for a moment. Then I answered honestly. No, I said. But you get stronger. She studied my face. Like she was trying to decide if she believed me. Do you actually believe that? She asked. I nodded. I have to, I said. For my daughter. That seemed to reach her. Not just the words, but the reason behind them. She looked down at her hands. Then back at the city. Maybe that's what I'm missing, she said quietly. A reason. I shook my head slightly. You don't need a reason to exist, I said. You just need a reason to keep going. She looked at me again. And this time, there was something different in her eyes. Not just pain. Not just doubt. Something softer. Something hopeful. Maybe I needed to hear that tonight, she said. I smiled slightly. Maybe I needed to say it. And for a moment, we just stood there. 2 people. 2 completely different lives. Connected by something neither of us expected. But both of us needed. Because sometimes, it's not about fixing the past. It's about finding someone who understands it. And in that quiet moment, under the city lights, the weight we carried didn't feel quite as heavy anymore. I didn't realize how long we'd been standing there, until the music inside changed. A slower song this time. Softer. Warmer. The kind of music that doesn't just play in the background. It pulls you back in. She noticed it too. I could tell by the way her eyes shifted slightly toward the ballroom doors. Then back to me. For a second, neither of us said anything. But the moment felt different now. Less guarded. Less uncertain. Like something had quietly settled between us. I think they're playing another slow song, I said. She gave a small smile. Yeah, they are. I hesitated for just a moment. Not because I didn't want to ask. But because I knew this time, it meant more. Do you want to go back? I asked. Her eyes held mine. There was no hesitation this time. No, she said softly. I don't want to hide out here anymore. That was the moment I knew something had changed. Not just in the situation, but in her. The girl who stood alone against the wall earlier wasn't the same person standing in front of me now. This version of her was choosing to be seen. And that takes more courage than most people understand. I nodded. Then let's go. We walked back inside together. But this time, it felt different. Before, we were 2 strangers stepping into a room that didn't feel like ours. Now, we were walking in like we had a reason to be there. The lights seemed brighter. The music clearer. The crowd, less overwhelming. Or maybe, we had just stopped caring about what they thought. As we stepped onto the dance floor again, I turned to her. She didn't wait. She placed her hand in mine like it belonged there. And for the first time, There was no tension. No hesitation. Just trust. We moved with the music. Slow. Natural. Effortless. And I noticed something almost immediately. She wasn't holding back anymore. Her posture had changed. Her movements felt lighter. Freer. Like she wasn't trying to make herself smaller. "You're different," I said quietly. She looked up at me. A hint of curiosity in her eyes. "Different how?" I smiled slightly. "You're not trying to disappear anymore." For a second, she didn't respond. Then she let out a soft breath. "Maybe I got tired of feeling invisible," she said. I nodded. "That makes two of us." She studied my face. Like she was trying to understand something deeper. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "Of course." This time, her question came slower. More thoughtful. "Why did you really ask me to dance?" Not the surface answer. Not the polite one. The real one. I thought about it for a moment. Then I answered honestly. "Because you looked like someone who needed to be seen," I said. Her expression softened. "And you think one dance can do that?" she asked quietly. I shook my head. "No," I said. "But sometimes, it's enough to remind someone they exist." That hit her. I could see it. In the way her eyes shifted. In the way her breathing changed slightly. "I've spent years feeling like I don't belong anywhere," she said. Her voice was steady. But the emotion was there. Like no matter where I go, people only see what's wrong with me. I tightened my hold on her hand just slightly. Not to control. Just to reassure. "There's nothing wrong with you," I said. She let out a small, almost broken laugh. "That's not what the world says." I met her gaze. "Then the world's not paying attention," I said. Silence followed. But it wasn't empty. It was full. Full of everything she hadn't heard in years. "Do you really believe that?" she asked. There was vulnerability in that question. The kind that doesn't come easily. "I do," I said. "And I'm not saying it to make you feel better. I'm saying it because it's true." She searched my face. Looking for doubt. Looking for hesitation. She didn't find it. "You don't look at me the way they do," she said. "No," I replied. "I don't." Why? That question. It wasn't simple. But my answer was. "Because I know what it's like to lose something that changes you," I said. Her eyes softened. "And I know what it's like when people stop seeing you, and start seeing what you lost instead." That was it. That was the moment everything shifted. Because suddenly, we weren't just two people dancing. We were two people who understood each other. On a level that didn't need explanation. Her eyes filled slightly. Not with sadness. But with something deeper. Something closer to release. "I've never heard anyone say it like that before," she whispered. I gave a small smile. "Then you haven't been around the right people." She shook her head slowly. "Maybe I just stopped looking." The music slowed even more. The room seemed quieter somehow. Or maybe we were just more focused on each other than anything else. "I thought my life ended that day," she said suddenly. I didn't interrupt. "I thought everything I was supposed to be, everything I could become, was gone." Her voice trembled slightly now. "But tonight." She paused. Took a breath. Then looked at me again. "You made me feel like maybe it's not." I shook my head gently. "No," I said. "I didn't do that." She frowned slightly. "Then what did?" I smiled. "You remembered who you were before everyone else told you who to be." She held my gaze. And for the first time, I saw it clearly. Not just strength. Not just survival. But belief. She was starting to believe it. And that changes everything. "You've changed something tonight," she said softly. I shook my head again. "I didn't change anything," I said. "I just showed you what was already there." She didn't argue. She didn't question it. She just accepted it. And sometimes, that's the hardest part. The song came to an end. But this time, there was no hesitation. No uncertainty. We didn't step away immediately. Because now, this wasn't just a moment. It was the beginning of something. Something neither of us had planned, but both of us needed. Because sometimes, the right words, at the right time, from the right person, can do more than just comfort you. They can remind you that you were never broken to begin with. You just forgot how to see yourself. And that night, she started to remember. The music ended. But this time, we didn't rush to step away. Because something had changed. Not just in the moment, but in us. She didn't look like the girl I saw at the beginning of the night anymore. The one standing alone against the wall. Hiding in plain sight. This version of her was present. Grounded. Alive in a way that couldn't be ignored. And the most surprising part? She wasn't trying to hide her scars anymore. They were still there. Still visible. But they didn't define her presence in the same way. Not anymore. Thank you, she said softly. I looked at her. For what? For not looking away, she replied. Simple. But it carried everything. I gave a small smile. You made that easy, I said. She shook her head slightly. No, she said. You made it possible. For a second, neither of us spoke. Because some moments don't need more words. They just need to be felt. Eventually, the crowd began to shift. People moving toward the exits. The night slowly coming to an end. Reality returning. But this time, it didn't feel as heavy. We walked toward the entrance together. Side by side. Not as strangers. Not as two people trying to survive the same room. But as something else. Something quieter. Something real. When we stepped outside, the night air felt different. Cool. Calm. Honest. Like the world had reset somehow. She stopped just a few steps away from the door. And for the first time since I met her, she hesitated again. Not in the same way as before. Not out of fear. But out of uncertainty. Will I see you again? She asked. There it was. The question that matters. Not about the past. Not about what happened tonight. But about what comes next. I looked at her for a moment. Then gave a small, thoughtful smile. That depends, I said. She tilted her head slightly. On what? On whether you want to be seen again, I replied. For a second. She just stared at me. Then slowly, a smile spread across her face. Not hesitant. Not unsure. Confident. I think I do, she said. That was all I needed to hear. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a small card. My number. Nothing fancy. Just simple. Real. For coffee, I said, handing it to her. Or another dance. She took it carefully. Like it mattered. And in that moment, it did. I'll call, she said. I nodded. I'll answer. We stood there for another second. Neither of us quite ready to walk away. But knowing we had to. Because sometimes, the best beginnings don't happen when you stay. They happen when you leave, with something to come back to. Good night, she said softly. Good night, I replied. And then, she turned and walked away. But this time, she didn't disappear into the background. She didn't shrink. She didn't hide. She walked like someone who finally understood that she deserved to be seen. And I stood there for a moment longer, watching, thinking, trying to process how one night, one conversation, one dance, could shift something so deeply. Then I went home, back to my normal life, back to early mornings, packed lunches, construction noise, bedtime stories. But something felt different. Not big, not dramatic, just lighter. Like the weight I'd been carrying for years had shifted slightly. Like maybe I wasn't as alone as I thought. A few days passed. Then a week. Life went on. The routine stayed the same. But every now and then, I caught myself thinking about her. About that night. About the way she looked when she smiled. And then, one afternoon, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. But something told me to pick it up. Hello. There was a small pause on the other end. Then, hi. Her voice. Soft. Familiar. It's me. I smiled instantly. I was hoping you'd call, I said. I could hear the smile in her voice. I wasn't sure if I should, she admitted. I'm glad you did. We talked for a few minutes. Simple things. Nothing complicated. But it felt easy. Natural. Like we weren't starting something new. We were continuing something that had already begun. We agreed to meet. Not at a gala. Not somewhere overwhelming. Just a small cafe. Quiet. Comfortable. Real. When I saw her again, she looked different. Not because the scars were gone. They weren't. But because she wasn't hiding them. Her posture. Her expression. Her energy. Everything felt stronger. More certain. We sat across from each other. Coffee between us. Sunlight coming through the window. And for the first time, it felt like we were exactly where we were supposed to be. You came, she said with a small smile. I said I would, I replied. She looked down at her cup for a moment. Then back at me. I've been going out more, she said. That caught my attention. Yeah. She nodded. Not a lot, she added quickly. But, more than before. I smiled. That's a start. She smiled back. And I stopped hiding my arms, she said. There was a quiet confidence in her voice now. Not forced. Not fragile. Real. That's a big step, I said. It is, she replied. And it's because of that night. I shook my head gently. No, I said. It's because of you. She didn't argue this time. She just accepted it. And that told me everything. A few days later, she met Lily. I wasn't sure how that would go. Kids are honest. They don't filter. They don't pretend. But the moment they met, something clicked. Lily smiled at her like she already knew her. And Ava. She didn't pull back. She didn't hesitate. She knelt down and met her at eye level. And just like that, the distance was gone. Later that evening, we sat in the park. Lily playing nearby. Laughing. Running. Free. Ava watched her quietly. There was something in her expression. Something soft. Something thoughtful. You didn't just dance with me that night, she said. I looked at her. What do you mean? She took a small breath. You gave me something I thought I lost, she said. I shook my head gently. No, I replied. You just needed someone to remind you it was still there. She looked at me. And this time, there was no doubt. No hesitation. Just certainty. And maybe, that's what this was always about. Not fixing each other. Not saving each other. But reminding each other. That we were never as broken as we thought. That we were still capable of something more. And as the sun began to set, and Lily's laughter filled the air, I realized something. That night at the gala wasn't just about a dance. It wasn't just about a conversation. It was about a moment. A choice. A simple decision. To see someone. When everyone else chose not to. And sometimes, that's all it takes. To change a life. Or maybe, two.